Good to have you. US President Donald Trump is calling on Israel and Iran to halt attacks after the worst escalation of hostilities since the fragile ceasefire came into effect in April. Iran's Revolutionary Guard say they've targeted 2 Israeli air bases and a petrochemical plant in Haifa in 3 rounds of missile strikes on Israel. The Israeli military says Iran has fired almost 30 ballistic missiles towards its territory. Tensions escalated after Israel struck the southern suburb of Beirut on Sunday. Iran accuses Israel of repeatedly violating ceasefire agreements and says the US is also responsible.
We have intelligence information that CENTCOM is taking part in the airstrikes with the Zionist entity. We are also certain that the Zionist entity is not listening to the United States. What's more important to us is that the US is directly responsible. They are party to the ceasefire negotiations. Therefore, any event or any act in violation of the ceasefire, be it through the interception of vessels, the targeting of southern Lebanon by Israel, or any other event, will cause the United States to be directly responsible for the escalation in the region.
And Israeli officials have started transferring patients to one of its primary underground medical facilities in the north. The Rambam Hospital in Haifa was built to withstand missile attacks during conflict. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it's carried out a large-scale strike on Iran's strategic defense systems, which it says were being rebuilt after the previous conflict. Sounds of explosions have been heard in Tehran. The Israeli military says it's prepared for a range of operations in Iran from several days to, quote, as long as it takes. Israeli strikes have hit parts of the capital, Tehran, Tabriz and Isfahan. The Israeli military says its air force has also struck several targets at the petrochemical complex in Mahshahr. And in the past half an hour, Trump posted a simple message on his Truth Social platform saying Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting. Well, we have correspondents standing by in Sana'a, Ramallah and Tehran. We'll hear from them shortly, but first let's speak with Manuel Rapolo, who's in Washington, D.C. And Manuel, President Trump explicitly warned Prime Minister Netanyahu to hold back overnight, confidently telling reporters that he dictates the term of the conflict. His Truth Social has been largely quiet until recently, where he has, as I mentioned, called on both sides to stop shooting. When Washington, and I can see the sun's finally come up behind you, when Washington fully wakes up, what sort of challenges await the Trump administration?
Good to be with you, Neve. The city is just coming online, and so is President Trump. As you said, a very simple message there on his Truth Social account saying Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting. So this is exactly the scenario that President Trump, the White House, U.S. diplomats were specifically trying to avoid, the escalation that we've seen over the course of the last 12 hours or so. Very different situation than what we've seen over the course of the past few days, which has been, if anything, a signaling from U.S. officials of optimism that a deal was near. President Trump being vocal and very public about his calls for other countries, for Israel and for Iran, to show restraint here, to allow a space for a peace deal between Washington and Tehran to take effect. There was a phone call that took place between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday, where President Trump reportedly asked for Israel to not retaliate after those Iranian missile strikes in Israel. That Financial Times reported on Sunday that President Trump had said that he calls the shots, saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu would not have a choice but to move forward with a plan with Iran. All of this being met within just a few hours of that with defiance. We've seen Israel not only launch retaliatory strikes, but several strikes against Iran, against several different targets. So right now, as we mentioned, the city is only beginning to come online now, but we can expect more statements from U.S. officials in the coming hours. We're certainly expecting U.S. officials to answer a very important question to the American public, which is exactly how much influence does Washington actually have when it comes to influencing Israeli decision-making?
Manuel, stay with us. I'll come back to you in a second. I want to bring in Tawhid Asadi, who joins us from Tehran. So, Tawhid, a message of restraint from Donald Trump. He is clearly awake, clearly responding. We are seeing a big geographic spread to these Israeli counterstrikes in Iran, stretching from explosions in Tehran, where you are, Tabriz, and to that direct hit on a petrochemical complex in the southwest. Do we have any more clarity on the extent of the damage, and what have you seen and heard there in the capital?
Well, actually, in the southwest of the country, in the city of Mahshahr, a petrochemical industrial plant was said to be targeted. The damage is confirmed, the extent of which remains to be seen. No official information in that regard, no casualties as well. And they are also saying that in the northwestern parts of the country, in the city of Tabriz, according to local authorities, a military base was targeted, again with no casualties, according to what hear from the Iranian sources. Here in the capital, Tehran, over the past few hours, we have been able to hear the sounds of explosions and the activation of the air defense system, not only here, but also in other cities such as Kermanshah. Also in the province of Isfahan, in the city of Najafabad, reports are coming about explosions taking place. This is one side of the coin. On the other side, we've got IRGC statements coming one after the other, talking about their strikes and retaliatory strikes. First attacking the Ramat David air base, then later attacking two other air bases, according to them strategically important ones. Also attacking a petrochemical industrial segment and a plant in Haifa as a sort of tit-for-tat retaliatory strike to what happened to Mahshahr industrial plant. Also, we've got this very latest statement coming from the spokesperson for the joint military headquarters of Khatam al-Anbiya, coming out a few minutes ago to say that we acted as we promised. They also continue to say that Israel witnessed, quote-unquote, a successful offensive operation, receiving heavy targeted, intelligent, and damaging blows from powerful forces of Islamic Republic. And they also say that if the aggressions and the devil acts continue, the Israeli regime and the Americans will be dealt with more severely. This is very much similar to other statements that we have been hearing. A very strong message from Tehran. They are saying that this is just a sort of initial shot, a sort of way to convey the message that Iran is very strong when it comes to these retaliatory strikes. They say that Israelis should stop their aggressions on Lebanese territories, as well as they should not strike back to the Iranian strikes. Also, they're saying that in case of further strikes and attacks, Iran is going to provide them with quote-unquote crushing and regrettable answers. This is what we hear from the Iranian side, from military officials. Meanwhile, last but not the least, we've got the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Esmail Baghaei, on his press conference today, talking about actually the parallel trajectory of diplomacy and military moving on simultaneously in respect to the exigencies of the country, in particular the national interest of the Iranians.
All right, Toed, we'll come away from you for the time being there in Tehran and bring in Nida Ibrahim, who's in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. So, Nida, by the sounds of it, the lines coming out of Iran is that we will fight for as long as it takes, irrespective of this latest post by Donald Trump calling on both sides to stop shooting. We have seen 3 rounds of strikes towards Israel alongside the first Houthi ballistic missile intercepted since the April truce. Both the north and the south of the country targeted. What's the latest on the political and military front in Israel?
Well, according to the Israeli army, they are getting ready for a few days of fighting, and they are also gearing up if the escalation is prolonged. These remarks were given to the media just before the Trump statement. We have not heard anything from Israeli politicians, and time and again we know that the Israelis do not necessarily defy Trump publicly, but at the same time we are waiting to see how Netanyahu, how the Israeli officials are going to listen to and how they're going to respond to this latest statement by President Trump, given that he indeed was from the very get-go saying to Israel not to retaliate. But in general, we're talking about an update on the number of missiles that have been hit from Yemen into Israel. According to Israeli sources, they say Ansar Allah al-Houthi group has fired 2 projectiles. One of them fell on the way to Israel. The other one has been intercepted, according to the Israeli army's radio, in addition to 30 rockets, 30 missiles being fired from Iran in the latest volleys against different areas in Israel, in the north, as well as in the central areas. As we've been reporting, the Ben Gurion airport remains open. There's no talk of closing the airspace for now, even though the home front has wanted and had discussions with the Minister of Transportation to try to limit the number of passengers to 2,500. That means limiting or reducing the amount of flights per hour, but that did not happen until now. Although we've seen some some international airlines rather, suspending their flights or extending the already existing suspension of flights to and from Israel. In general, there is no, in the past hour or so, even maybe we could say safely in the past 2 hours, we have not seen any new alerts, any new sirens. But at the same time, this was a night where millions of Israelis have had to go to shelters, to protected areas, as well as the education being cancelled, and the restrictions back on gatherings have been reinserted by the Israeli home front.
All right, Nida, many thanks for that update. Well, as Nida was saying there, Yemen's Houthis have also launched a strike on Israel in support of Iran. The group is also threatening further attacks on Red Sea shipping.
The Yemeni armed forces affirmed the following. First, we declare a complete and total ban on Israeli maritime navigation in the Red Sea, and we consider all enemy movements to be legitimate military targets for our armed forces from the moment that this statement is issued.
Well, let's speak now to Youssef Mauri, joining us from Sana'a. And Youssef, as well as this attack, the Houthis are promising to disrupt Israeli maritime traffic in the Red Sea. Do we have any sense of what that might look like?
Well, the Yemeni group possesses a diverse way of tactics to ensure that a successful naval blockade is imposed against all Israeli shipping. Let's not forget that they have been successful in imposing and preventing Israeli traffic to Bab el-Mandab, from Bab el-Mandab in previous rounds of conflict. What they plan to do and what they have done in the past successfully is wage direct strikes using their variety of ballistic missiles, a variety of hypersonic missiles, and also littering the Red Sea with naval mines. And they also have coordinated swarm attacks using and utilizing a variety of Yemeni drones. All of this has been done in the past. They've had success in attacking Israeli ships. They've sunk Israeli ships to the bottom of the Red Sea, and essentially they were successful in leading to the full closure of the port of Eilat. The port of Eilat, of course, is Israel's gateway for trade through the Red Sea. It is their only port that they trade from and to Asia. And that's the ace card for the Ansar Allah group. They plan on hitting Israel hard and trying to sabotage their economy in any way that they can. The Ansar Allah spokesperson, Yahya Sari, he mentioned that this is going to be a full blockade, which means that if Israel attempts to cross Bab el-Mandab, they're going to be attacked with a hypersonic, ballistic, or a swarm of drones. I've also spoken to one of the Ansar Allah Houthi political officials, and he tells me that if Israel decides to retaliate by attacking Yemen, then this will lead to an escalation. And when I asked what this escalation of military activities is going to be, he mentioned that more Israeli assets and more U.S. assets across the region will also be targeted if Israel decides to retaliate by attacking Yemen. But again, this is something that the Ansarullah Houthis have done successfully in the past, and if Israel retaliates, it's only going to lead into more military escalations and more Yemeni attacks utilizing their hypersonic missile, which is able to reach Israel from Yemen in less than 11 minutes.
Yusuf, many thanks for that. Yusuf Mari there in Sana'a in Yemen. Well, let's go full circle and go back to Manuel Rapallo in Washington, D.C. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we can call this confidently an escalation, and it comes at a moment when, of course, Pakistan's Interior Minister only a day prior was in Tehran to deliver that critical message to the Supreme Leader. I know Washington is just waking up now and taking stock of what has been happening, but is there a sense that this could seriously weaken hopes of those delicate negotiations bearing fruit?
It's quite the contrast, isn't it? Just compared to what we were hearing on Sunday from the White House, which was this overwhelming sense of optimism that a deal with Iran would be forthcoming, that it was tangible. President Trump going as far as saying that the deal could be done by Wednesday or Tuesday or as soon as Monday, as soon as today. It's very hard to reconcile that sort of optimism with the escalation that we've seen over the course of the last 12 hours or so. We know that President Trump is quite eager to find a diplomatic off-ramp to this conflict. There's a lot of pressure, not only from Democrats here in the United States, but from Republicans, from members of President Trump's own party to bring this conflict to an end. There's concern over inflation, over gas prices, over the continued question over the Strait of Hormuz. All of these topics have become everyday political debate here in Washington. So it's growing increasingly difficult for the Trump administration to continue to project or to sell this argument that diplomacy still has traction here. But we know that U.S. officials are quite eager to find a diplomatic off-ramp to this. At the moment, the challenge that U.S. diplomats are going to be waking up to is to not only get the situation under control, to de-escalate this as soon as possible, to not only prevent a scenario that could drag the United States back into an open conflict with Iran, but to continue to prevent the diplomatic track from degrading.
Yeah, and in order to dial down the heat, no doubt. Manuel Rapallo joining us in Washington, D.C. Many thanks for that, Manny.